Imagine someone so rich that his spending still shocks the world's economy 700 years later. A man so rich that even today's economists can't put a real number on it. A man who spent so much gold that it caused an inflation that lasted over a decade. Well, meet Mansa Musa, 14th century emperor of Mali and the richest man in history. But his journey from a young prince to the most legendary ruler wasn't just about gold, it was about power, legacy, and an empire that amazed the medieval world. Stay tuned and enjoy learning about the life of Mansa Musa. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Atlas Chronicles for more content like this. It was the late 13th century in present-day Mali, located in the Sahel, where the dry Saharan desert meets the tropical African savanna. A prince was born into a royal family. Already with a legacy to uphold, this prince was destined to have a strong influence in the medieval world. That prince was Mansa Musa. The name Musa Keita was initially given to him, which means Moses, evoking visions of leadership, faith, and deliverance. This was the beginning of the rise of the richest ruler to ever live. As a child, Musa was always asking questions about stars, ancient people, and the strange travelers who passed through Niani on camels. He would sit by the feet of the griots, listening for hours, absorbing the tales of Sundiata Keita, the Lion King who had founded Mali a century before. But Musa was not just a dreamer, he was a doer. Already at age 7, he gathered the neighborhood boys into mock caravans, pretending to be traders and kings. He built tiny palaces from sticks and mud. Whenever they played war games, Musa never chose to be the general. He chose to be the wise man and the builder of cities. At a young age, he was already showing signs that he was destined to be a leader. Even his grandfather told him, "You think like a king, my boy, but to rule men, you must know their hunger, their thirst, and their faith." So, Musa began to learn. By age 12, Musa had developed an insatiable thirst for knowledge. He studied the Quran under Islamic scholars who had come from as far as Cairo and Timbuktu. He learned mathematics, astronomy, law, and the principles of Islamic governance. He would rise before dawn to pray, then study until the sun dipped below the horizon. His devotion earned him respect, and quietly, word spread that he was no ordinary boy. Regardless of this, Musa never craved power for its own sake. He often ventured into the markets, helping merchants weigh their goods, or to the farms, where he'd watch how millet and rice were grown. He spoke kindly to the slaves and servants, learning their names, hearing their stories. When Musa was 15, an old Tuareg traveler arrived in Niani. He claimed to have come from the salt mines of Tagaza, and he brought with him a lump of gold shaped like a lion's head. He handed it to Musa and said, "This is for the one who will one day make the world see the golden heart of Mali." He held the lion in his palm and said nothing, but something stirred in his chest, a feeling he won't forget. This moment potentially marked the beginning of his journey to the Mansa Musa we all know today. Mansa Musa carried on with this inquisitive mindset for many years, gaining knowledge and wisdom whenever he can. Fast forward to 1312, when Musa was around 23 years old. Abu Bakr II was the emperor of Mali at the time, and he had always been obsessed with finding the edge of the ocean. He believed that beyond the horizon lay unknown lands. He was so determined that he planned an expedition across the Atlantic with many sailors from the empire. Before he set sail, he appointed his duty to Musa to rule in his absence. Musa was not the first in line for the throne. Although he was a royal by blood, he never imagined wearing the crown so soon. However, his role was temporary, or so everyone thought. Bakr set sail with his team, and weeks passed, then months, then years. No ship returned, no messenger. The Atlantic Ocean had swallowed the emperor whole. With no ruler of Mali, the Council of Elders knew they had to appoint a new leader, and that's when they chose Musa. They placed before him the golden staff of Sundiata Keita, symbol of the empire's founding. Musa took the staff and was officially the ruler of the richest empire on earth. But his rise to power was not greeted by silence. Across the desert, rival kingdoms watched, traders speculated, and some doubted whether this soft-spoken young prince could guard Mali's golden crown. Little did they know, Mansa Musa would prove them wrong. With this power, Musa knew it was possible for him to change the Mali Empire. He had a vision to expand the empire beyond the Sahel. He sent messages to his generals which stated that the empire is not to shrink by an inch under my rule. It will grow. The expansion was almost instant. armies rode through savannas and over desert dunes, reclaiming lost towns and bringing new territories. The great city of Gao, a jewel along the Niger, fell into Mali's hands, swelling the empire's influence over the trans-Saharan trade. Every victory fed Mali's wealth: gold from the south, salt from the Sahara, ivory from the forest, and slaves captured from lands. The Niger River became a golden highway, carrying riches and power to Niani. But Musa just didn't want war. He ordered the repair of crumbling trade routes and the protection of merchants. Soon, traders could travel from the Atlantic coast to the edge of the Sahara under the shield of Mali warriors. With trading booming and borders secure, Musa began a different kind of conquest, one of cultures and learning. He invited Muslim scholars from the north of the continent, as well as traders from Cairo. It didn't take long for the word of Islam to be brought upon the empire, as well as books filled with knowledge which people in Mali absorbed. In those first years, Musa transformed Mali from a powerful kingdom into a global empire, feared by enemies, admired by allies, and whispered about in markets as far away as Venice and Mecca. But Musa didn't just stop there. The emperor of Mali wanted to expand his influence beyond the empire, to surprise the medieval world by revealing the power and the wealth of the Mali Empire. He did this through his legendary pilgrimage from Niani to Mecca. His entourage was enormous. There were 60,000 people from the Mali Empire, 12,000 slaves, and many camels laden with gold. The journey began across the hot, endless dunes of the Sahara. Everywhere the caravan stopped, Mansa gave lavish gifts to the poor, bought supplies at generous prices, and rewarded hosts with gold. Eventually, Musa and his empire arrived at Cairo. The whole city froze. The streets are crammed to see the emperor from the mysterious empire of the West. It was almost like a moving festival. Musa met with al-Nasir Muhammad, who was the Mamluk Sultan at the time. He presented him with gifts of gold so abundant that they glittered in the palace hall. He then spent freely across Cairo's markets, so freely that he unintentionally flooded Egypt's economy with gold. The sudden abundance of gold caused inflation that would last more than a decade. He then proceeded with his pilgrimage, eventually arriving at Mecca. This is where Musa shifted from being a dazzling, gold-giving ruler to a humble pilgrim, fulfilling one of Islam's most sacred duties. He officially completed the Hajj, circling the Kaaba 7 times and praying constantly. He distributed more wealth and funded the maintenance of mosques. He even formed diplomatic and religious relationships, as Mecca was the meeting point for Muslims across Africa, Asia, and Europe. Musa met scholars, traders, and political envoys, strengthening Mali's ties with the wider Muslim world. After completing his pilgrimage to Mecca, Musa returned to Niani, but not empty-handed. He brought back architects and scholars. Among them was the famous architect Ishaq al-Twedjin, who would design the famous Jingueriba Mosque in Timbuktu, strengthening the Islamic culture in the empire. The pilgrimage made Mali famous. The name Mansa Musa and the Mali Empire began to appear on European maps for the first time. Upon his arrival back from the pilgrimage, Musa transformed his empire into a beacon of knowledge and faith. He built mosques across the land and poured his wealth into Sankore University, filling it with books and scholars. Soon, Timbuktu became a place where people traveled from far and wide to study. He also worked hard to keep the empire's vast trade routes. He appointed governors and judges, carefully balancing the justice of Islamic law with the traditions of Mali. Mansa Musa's name was synonymous with power and wealth. Unfortunately, this didn't make him immortal. Many years later, Musa grew older and weaker. His beard, once black, had turned silver, and the weight of the empire rested heavily on his shoulders. Sensing his time was near, Musa ensured that his son, Magan I, was prepared to take the throne. He handed over responsibilities gradually, guiding his heir with the wisdom of decades of rule. Unfortunately, at the age of 57, the king has passed away. The sun finally set on the reign of Mansa Musa. Mali mourned the man who had brought them wealth, honor, and learning beyond measure. Although he has passed, the legend of Mansa Musa is immortal. To this day, his story is still being taught and often surprises people with how impactful he was. Mansa Musa is a name that people won't forget for centuries to come. And that was the story of Mansa Musa, the wealthiest man on earth. What shocked you the most about Mansa Musa's reign? Comment down below your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Atlas Chronicles for more stories on historical figures like this one.
manta manta ومالي ويلي manta 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 مدحين بناني manta